Hello and welcome to another episode of Sermon Braindump. My name is Scott Dalen, an ELCA pastor in Southwest Iowa, and I present these videos every week for a couple different reasons. The first of which is to take my brain out of more background work and move into the process of writing and preparing a sermon that I will preach to my congregation for the weekend. That is the first reason. And the second is just to allow you, the viewer, who have graciously given of your time to listen to me ramble, to gain some different insight into the assigned text. Now, that's the truth, whether you are a subscriber and a regular viewer who tunes in every week, for which I say thank you, or if you are brand new and you stumbled across this and you're like, what is this guy talking about? But to allow you to do that. So that's why I do these videos. This particular Sunday, October 27th, 2019. It is the 20th Sunday after Pentecost for those in the tradition that follow the lectionary but are not big on the Reformation, and that's typically the Catholic Church. But here within the Lutheran tradition, this one is Reformation Sunday. If you are familiar at all with the history of the Lutheran Church, you know that 502 years ago, October 31st, of course, Halloween Day, Martin Luther sparked off the opening portion of the history known as the Reformation when he nailed the 95 Theses to the chapel door at Wittenberg University and began the process of hopefully reforming the church. Now, we celebrate that here in the Lutheran tradition. Of course, Luther is important to us. We named our denomination after him. But we always celebrate that on the final Sunday of October, the Sunday closest to the 31st. Every once in a while, when the calendar falls right, we get to celebrate on the day. But if not, it's always just that last Sunday. And that is, of course, what is going on this week. With that, it's always the same gospel lesson. The lectionary is set up to where we have the same readings every year for Reformation Sunday. And this one is no different. It is John 8:31 through 36. Because of the repeating nature of this particular gospel lesson on Reformation Sunday, I've done a few videos with this one as the focus, and you can certainly reference those as well. This will probably be a fairly short video for that purpose, just because I've done a lot of them before. So you can check those out if you'd like to get a little bit more information. But let's go ahead and read it, and we'll get into it. Again, John 8:31 through 36. Jesus said to the Jews who had believed in him, "If you continue in my word, you are truly my disciples. You will know the truth, and the truth will make you free." They answered him, "We are descendants of Abraham and have never been slaves to anyone. What do you mean by saying you will be made free?" Jesus answered them, "Very truly I tell you, everyone who commits sin is a slave to sin. The slave does not have a permanent place in the household. The Son has a place there forever. So if the Son makes you free, you will be free indeed." That's the reading. This is part of a larger portion of John's Gospel, chapter 8. We kind of see a lot of back and forth and teaching and responses to various things going on. The first part of the chapter, we have the story of the woman caught in adultery who's brought to Jesus, and that's the "you who have no sin, cast the first stone" situation, if you're familiar with that one. Not, go look it up. It's a good story. Excuse me. And then there's some back and forth, that teaching, and we hear, because of everything going on, some of the Jews that are there in the temple court, which is where this takes place, that some of them believed in him. And this is who Jesus is talking to in this specific portion. It almost seems like it's not a critique, but a warning, because they've made this immediate decision. So this is a response to brand new believers, and Jesus seems to want to indicate to them the importance of an ongoing faith. That it's not a one-time thing. It's not just, "Oh, we believe you, yay, everything's good and golden, and there's nothing more we have to do for the rest of our lives." But that there is the importance of remaining connected and abiding. That's what this is. John's Gospel loves the word abide, or it's meno in the Greek, and it means to live among or to camp out with. It's just kind of the thing, like when we hear the word became flesh and dwelled among us, that dwelling, that's meno. The word became flesh and menoed among us, abided among us. Yeah, I got to reference the Big Lebowski. I'm going to be a pop culture nerd for a second here. The dude abides. I think I actually used that in a sermon for Reformation Day in the past. Maybe not. I know I have. I don't remember if it was Reformation Day, but I digress. But what's going on here? What does this mean to abide, or to continue, or to dwell in my words that Jesus talks about, and the importance of that? when he says this, it sparks a reaction from these new believers who are of the Jewish culture, and they reference being descendants of Abraham. And it's kind of funny. They're like, we've never been slaves of everyone. It's like, of anyone. And Jesus is like, well, I can only imagine Jesus is like, dudes, really? Do you know your own culture? The Jewish culture literally began in servitude to Egypt in the period between the end of Genesis and the beginning of Exodus. It's like, what? And not to mention the ongoing history of constantly being conquered and controlled by various different superpowers of the day. They've been in servitude. They've been enslaved. It's happened. So that's kind of funny. But what Jesus is really talking about is he's using this slave language, and I think it's because it's impactful. It's deep. It's not just like, well, you're affected by it. It's like, think about being a slave. You have no agency. You have no self-control. It's like, I think of the movie Gladiator came out like, I don't know, 2000 maybe. It's an older movie. But there's a line in that where the main character is talking to one of his slaves. And he says, do you like your life, or something like that? And he says, sometimes I get to do what I want to do. Most of the times I do what I have to do. And that seems to be the aspect of this slavery, and slavery to sin. The one who commits sin is a slave to sin. I do what I have to do. I have no agency in it. It's that idea. And so then Jesus kind of continues to talk about the difference of community, the difference in household. The slave is part of the household, but not forever. Whereas the son, the heir, is a part of the household forever. And even though the translation that I read doesn't say it, it's meno, it's that abide. The slave does not abide in the household forever, but the son abides forever. And so if the son makes you free, you are free indeed. If the son makes you free, the son brings you into this household and gives you that permanent place. You together with the son are made an heir. That's really what's going on here. And that's the promise of the gospel. Jesus is the heir of the gospel, the heir of eternal life, whatever we want to say. And that's maybe a weird way to think about it, but he brings it about and receives it at the same time. And this is part of the whole Jesus is human and God at the same time. It's like, what? My confirmation kids always scratch their heads at that. But we're made a part of that through Christ. That's the promise of the gospel, that we receive it, not because we earn it, not because we're worthy of it, but because of God's incredible all-in sacrificial love for us, made real through the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. We receive that. So God abides with us. We abide with God. God abides with us through the Holy Spirit. It's this ongoing, continuous relationship, this wonderful cycle. Now, is it perfect? No. That's where the whole slavery thing comes in. And sinfulness and brokenness. We love to break the first commandment often. Also in confirmation, we're talking about the 10 commandments right now. And I've talked about, I believe that the most important commandment is the first one. You shall have no other gods before me. I think everything else stems from that when we try and put something else, oftentimes ourselves, in the place of God, in the prominent spot of God as the most important thing. We're breaking that first commandment. And try as we might, we do it. It's just in our natures. We're selfish by nature. And yet, through the grace of God, we simultaneously, saint and sinner is what Luther said, that we feel the effects of sin in our lives, and yet we have died to sin. And through Christ, we are made saints, if we want to say that. So there's so much happening here that in this brief little passage, I could continue talking, but I'm going to kind of wrap this up, because that's what I really want to focus on for the sermon. That it is through Christ. It's very passive on our nature, and maybe I didn't even say that. That the action that is happening is on the part of God. It's not on our part. We are passive in this. It is given to us. And Jesus says, cling to that, live into that. I think that's what abide in my word. What's my word? My word of Jesus is that I no longer call you slaves, but friends. You received this because of what I have done and because of what I have said. And when I say I'm speaking for Jesus, or I'm speaking for God, that this is from God. This is not of us. If you have thoughts, questions, comments, you want to throw that down in the comment section. We can continue the conversation that way. Otherwise, as I normally do, I want to say that if you appreciate these videos and would like to support the ministry that allows me to do them, I will put the link to my congregation's website down in the comment section. You can follow the links and support us financially if you feel so led. No pressure if you don't, but if you feel like you would like to support this ministry, it would be greatly appreciated. Otherwise, I hope you have a blessed week, and we will catch you next time.